What's up, APUSH peeps? We have the second party system. This is going to be an Andrew Jackson and Henry Clay centered video, and this is a very important part of the new APUSH curriculum. This to me screams a short answer question, so make sure you are familiar with it. All right, so let's start off talking about the 1820s, 1830s with the rise of new political parties, specifically the Whigs led by Henry Clay, that's going to be in the 1830s, and the Democrats in the 1820s led by Andrew Jackson. Now, this time saw increased political participation. You see this through the elimination of property requirements for adult white males. So you do see a large number of adult white males voting. That's the increase of political participation. But of course, we still have a large portion of the American population that cannot vote. African Americans, women. Now, the differences between the two parties that you should know is that there were debates over the role and power of the federal government. Should the federal government be strong? Should it be weak? The National Bank, or the second bus, or the Bank of the United States, this was a huge issue between these two. Also, tariffs, or taxes on imported goods, and federally funded internal improvements, or the federal government paying for infrastructure. Now, the last three here, this is really going to be Henry Clay's American system. So what we'll find is that the Whigs generally support these three things, and the Democrats generally are against these three things. So let's talk about the role and power of the federal government. Whigs tended to favor a stronger central government, and they would support Henry Clay's American system. The national bus, internal improvements, and the protective tariff. Again, make sure you know all three parts of the American system. I do have a video in the description on the American system. Check it out if you want more info. Democrats, they tended to favor more power for states, and they would oppose the American system. So that's one major difference between the two parties. The National Bank, or the second bus, Andrew Jackson, he's going to veto a recharter of the second bus, which would essentially be the third one in 1832. And this is going to lead to something called the Bank War. And I do have a video on that as well. Now, the Whigs, Henry Clay, they're going to really join and they're going to create this new political party, the Whigs, in response to what they called King Andrew I. And this is a very famous political cartoon, because what's unique about this is Andrew Jackson vetoed the bus, and this was the first time a president vetoed something because he didn't like it, not because he thought it was unconstitutional. He vetoed it because he personally did not like it. And you see here in his left hand, he has a veto in there, and many people thought that he was abusing his power. So key questions you should ask yourself anytime you see a political cartoon is who would agree with this, who would disagree with this. So obviously, the creator of this cartoon would most likely sympathize with the Whigs and would not sympathize with the Democrats. So maybe a northern banker would love this cartoon because it is criticizing Andrew Jackson, but maybe a farmer who was refused a loan by the Bank of the United States would disagree with this because they thought Andrew Jackson was good for killing the bus. All right, let's jump on over to tariffs. Tariffs are a tax on imported goods. They tended to be favored in the North and by industries and disliked by the South because tariffs tended to protect businesses in the North. Whigs tended to support them and Democrats did not. And you could already tell that because of the American system. Tariffs of 1828 and 1832 were really hotbed topics during this time. They were high tariff rates. And Dracula, who was the vice president, John C. Calhoun, who was the vice president to Andrew Jackson, he was from South Carolina, and he wrote the South Carolina Exposition in protest. He was against these high tariffs. And look at him. Yep, you see the resemblance there? It's identical. So in 1833, we have the Compromise Tariff of 1833, in which the tariff rates are lowered over 8 years, and that is the second of three major compromises by Henry Clay. And really, the country was close to civil war during this time. Let's jump on over to federally funded internal improvements. This is a key component of Henry Clay's American system. This means that the federal government would pay for infrastructure, especially when it came to states. And there were debates over whether the federal government should fund intra-state or one-state improvements. Henry Clay favored it. People who were against this did not. They thought the federal government should only pay for improvements that would benefit more than one state or interstate commerce. So Andrew Jackson, he will veto the Maysville Road bill, which would provide federal funds for a road that is solely in Kentucky. And many Whigs were upset about this. So Jackson's pretty much like, sorry, bro, no improvements for you because you are Kentucky. You are one state that's intra, not interstate commerce. All right, let's finish up with some test tips for multiple choice and short answer. Know the causes of the rise of the second party system. I could see this as a short answer question. Differences between the two parties, what are they? Who would support them? Characteristics of supporters. And for essays, almost any essay in the antebellum time period, you could fit these political parties into it. And a possible synthesis point could be connecting this to debates during the first party system. So for example, there were debates about the Bank of the United States during the second party system as there were in the first party system. Short answer question I will leave you with, and you are to answer all three parts. Briefly explain how one of the following was most significant in the formation of political parties in the early 19th century. Again, Whigs and Democrats. National bank, tariffs, federally funded internal improvements. Ladies and gentlemen, this is straight from the new curriculum, so you could see a short answer question like this. Provide one piece of historical evidence that supports your choice in Part A, and briefly explain why one of the other options is not as significant in the formation of political parties in the early 19th century. So you have to create an argument as to why one is a significant cause for the creation of parties and one of these is not as significant. All right, guys, and thank you very much for watching. Best of luck on all of your exams, especially the one in May, and make sure you are familiar with this political cartoon. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.